So today we're going to make some beef broth, and this is going to take a few hours, quite a bit of hours. We will have all night and into the morning. Well, I'm going to do this tonight because we're getting into 100+ degrees during the day, and I don't want the stove and oven running all day, so we're going to run it all night where it's cooler. So we've got, this is 3 pounds there, and another 3 pounds, 6 pounds of beef bones that we're going to go ahead and get started with. That's 3 and 3, 6 pounds of beef bones that we're going to get started with. So let's go ahead and get them in a big old pot, get some cold water on them, and get them to boiling. So we've separate the bones, 3 pounds of bones in the left pot, 3 pounds of bone in the right pot. We're going to blanch the bones, let this come to a boil, then we'll blanch it for about 15 minutes, and after that we will roast the bones. We'll get them in the oven and roast them for about an hour or so. Now that this pot is boiling, we will put that on simmer for 15 minutes, and this guy is running a little bit behind, so once he starts boiling we'll put that on simmer for 15 minutes. And now that we know we have right around 15-20 minutes, we'll get the oven to start preheating, get that oven on and let that start preheating for us so we can roast these bones. Okay, so the first pot was boiling, we turned it to simmer. Now our second pot was boiling, so we turned that to simmer. Now we're blanching the bones. These are beef bones. You want to blanch your beef bones because the blanching the bones will take a lot of the blood off of the bones, a lot of other impurities or anything, just to get your bones clean. What that does is that gives you a much cleaner broth, because when you have all that blood and gunk on your bones, it shows up in the broth. So we've got these on 15-minute simmer. So now I'm going to go ahead and set that oven to 450 degrees so that that oven can go into preheat. We're going to roast these bones. Once we finish blanching these bones, we're going to roast them for an hour. We're going to roast them for 30 minutes, then we'll turn them over and roast them for another 30 minutes. And that will really give us some good flavoring from these bones. Well, been 15 minutes, so what we're going to do now is we're going to pour these bones into the strainer. I already have the strainer in the sink, and we're going to rinse the bones, and then we'll put them in a roasting pan. And I have some onions. These are onions out of the garden. We'll cut these onions up. And I have some mixed veg, carrots, celery, other stuff like that I'll put on it to roast these bones. So let's go ahead and strain this first pot. I'll tell you what, let me put my mitts on. The handles aren't hot, but when I start turning it, my hands might touch the pot. So safety first. We'll just pour these out here in the sink. Scoot that strainer over. And I'll go ahead and get these bones out. Put this on this pan to roast. Yep. Well, before I roast these, I forgot I need to rinse these. So let's get them back in the pot, rinse them off. That'll get all that gunk off of them. Give them a cold water rinse. Now that we've rinsed them, we'll put them on this here pan to roast. Now I'll cut up some onions. Let me rinse those. They still have some dirt on them. So I'll cut some of these up real fast. Okay, so we have our pan of bones with vegetables here, and the second pan of bones with vegetables. Our oven is preheated to 450 degrees. So we'll go ahead and put these in there. Put that first one in. We'll go ahead and put that next one in. And now we will let those roast for 30 minutes. And then I will turn the bones over and let them roast for an additional 30 minutes. And then once they've roasted, we'll take them out, get them back in our pots, and get them boiling for the final stage. And at that stage, we'll let them run through the night, 12, 15 hours. You know, I'm up all night, so I can afford to let it run all night because I'm going to be checking it. But if you have to go to sleep, I don't advise you to leave your stove on all night. You can go ahead and run it during the day. And while that is going on, I'm going to go ahead and clean up my pots. Because if you look in the pots, there's all that gunk and stuff that's came off of all of that blood and gunk that came off of the meat. We want to clean all that out so that does not get in our broth. Well, it's been right at 30 minutes. So I'm going to turn these bones here over and let them roast for another 30 minutes. Sure smells good. Now it's been 30 minutes on that other side for a full total of 1 hour. Nice and sizzly, all that nice juice in there. We will now transport all of this into the pots and start boiling it down. Well, we have the bones and the vegetables in their pot. Bones are nice and roasted. So we'll go ahead and put our other seasonings in here and get us started. Well, we have everything in the pots, all the roasted bones. So now we're gonna spice up our pot a little bit. We got some bay leaves. I'll put a few bay leaves in there. I guess that's about good. 3, 4 in each pot. Then I've got some garlic, minced, chopped garlic. Smells good. We'll just put a little bit of that in there. Get that down in the pot. That'll be good. I've got some thyme. Just some thyme powder. We'll put some thyme powder in the pot. No set measurements. And then we've got some ground cinnamon. Put some ground cinnamon down in there. Yep, there you go. I'm gonna have to refill that from the big cinnamon container. Get some black pepper. Just put some black pepper in the pot. There's no set measurements. Get me some apple cider vinegar. I'll probably just put a little dab of that. Put a little dab in there. Now I am going to measure my water. I want about 12 cups of water in each pot, or until I cover the bone. We've got both pots full of water. We'll go ahead and put the lids on and let them get to going. It's 10:30 p.m. I'll check them through the night and we'll let them run till about 10:30, 11 a.m. Good evening, it's 5:30. Just made it in from the office. Had my pots simmering all day from last night through the night. Watched them, had them simmer all day. So we've got, I'll have to do the calculation. That's about 19 hours, 20 hours. So let's go ahead and have a look at it and see what we got going. Okay, so this is pot number 1. Broth is looking really good. We're gonna just turn it off, let it cool. And once it cool, we'll take all of the bones and everything out. We'll strain it. But that looks pretty good. I like the way that looks. Now we'll come over here to pot number 2. Just rest that lid down so it doesn't drop and crack anything. And that's looking good also. So got some good bone broth here. I'll probably take those bones out and the little pieces of meat that's on those bones. I'm going to go ahead and eat those now. But that looks good. So I'm going to let both of these pots cool off. Once they cool off, I'll strain it and get that broth into some jars that we can freeze, put in the freezer. We'll use some now and we'll use some later. But it looks nice and good. We have made the bone broth, put it in a bowl, put it in the fridge to cool off and to solidify. So now we're going to take that bone broth out of the fridge and put it into the jar containers to put in the freezer. This is what the bone broth looks like. I've knocked a little hole in the middle. All this here is going to be that extra grease, that thick grease. I'm going to take all of that off. Some people keep it and use it. I'm just probably going to throw it away. And what we're going after is this jelly bone broth that's in there. So let's go ahead and take all of this hard solidified grease off. Okay, so there's that thick grease. I'm going to go ahead and break that up, take all that off. So some people call that some of the good stuff, but that's a whole lot of grease I can do without. Oh, that looks like a big chunk breaking off right there. We'll try to get all of that together. Oh yeah, look at that. Get all of that together. That's how the bone broth's supposed to look. Real jello-y like. Get all of that off. All that is grease from the beef bones. No grease was added to this. Okay. Look at that. Jiggles like jello. So now we're going to go ahead and take this. This is the actual beef broth, bone broth. And we're going to go ahead and take this and put this in the jars. Okay, I've got the ladle. I've got my mason jars. Just going to put it right there for any overflow. Anything that falls over, just like that. See, I'm not going to make a mess. Now, I have one of those funnels that goes in the mason jar. But like everything, you never can find it when you need it. So we're just going to make a mess and clean up afterwards. Get all of this down in this jar. Just jelly, jelly, jelly. Bone broth. There you have it. We have 5 quarts of bone broth. So I will put these in the freezer. Let them get good and frozen. Then I'll put the cap on it to secure it. And keep it in the freezer until we need them. We'll probably take one out and use this coming week. We decided to keep this fat Not sure what we'll do with it, but we'll probably look up a recipe or something, or use it to cook something with. But that's some good bone fat. We'll just put in this freezer bag, put it in the freezer, and have it there to add to some future recipe. Let nothing go to waste.